Hello and welcome back to Just Another Football Podcast. Back again, joined by Ali and Fergal tonight to review some more international action. Since the last recording, the fortunes have changed for one nation, but perhaps not the one you might have expected. Fergal's got a big grin on his face, which will probably give it away. Before we come to that, Fergal, because I'm going to make you wait,
You tease.
Ali's back. Yeah, I'm going to tease you. And God, that sounded wrong. Ali's back, and he wasn't here last time to talk about Egypt and their struggles. And I believe you have some news for us, Ali, since the last recording as well.
Yeah, it's good to be back. First of all, you know how much I love doing these, so that's great. What's not great is Egyptian professionalism in soccer in general. Harry is.
Yeah, I should have specified actually Egypt football, not the country.
Oh,
but,
Egypt football. We can talk about the country too. That's
no, we'll save that, mate. That has a place on another podcast, I think.
Yeah. But our manager, since we last recorded, we obviously lost to Ethiopia 2-0 away comfortably, and then we played a friendly against South Korea, and lost 4-1. And since then, the manager has been sacked. But how that has happened, you can sack a manager and there could be a quick turnaround. That's fine. Like, these quick sackings happen. Like, ask Watford, right? So we had Carlos Queiroz, who I think he wanted to leave. But then, anyway, we apparently the Egyptian FA couldn't afford a foreign hire, because obviously that will be more expensive than an Egyptian hire, because you're paying in $1 rather than Egyptian pounds. So we settled on the manager of Pyramids, one of the teams you might have heard of, because they have had Saudi backing and investment, and are now one of the richer Egyptian teams and are in and around the top 4, let's say, ever since. And he actually did a pretty good job with Pyramids. And they chose him as the next Egypt manager. However, after that loss to Ethiopia, the one of the personnel in the Egyptian FA, I don't think it's the president of the FA, but I don't remember who it is. But essentially, it was announced via a phone call on a popular Egyptian talk show or sports show that they are looking at alternatives to Ehab Galal, and that's how he found out. How Egyptian manager Ehab Galal found out that he was sacked.
He'd been sacked. That's quite funny.
Yeah. They're starting to look for alternatives to him, like just de facto sacking him live on air without his prior knowledge. He was, I think at the time, close to boarding the flight to South Korea to play that friendly. And what ended up happening is he saw through the friendly, said goodbye to the players, and flew to New York for a nice little break, which is frankly the way I would have done it too. So well done to Ehab Galal. Just another slap in the face of professionalism from the Egyptian FA. We are completely mudded. We don't know the direction we're headed in. It's worth mentioning Mohamed Salah was injured for those 2 games. Just highlights how much of a one-man team we are. Without Salah, we are absolutely nothing. And this
one man though. In fairness, if you had to had one man, be your team.
We might as well be playing with 11 children, Fergal. We're shite. We're bad. We're a bad football team, and I don't see a way back for us, because of the lack of professionalism from the top. And that's a much bigger problem than just quality. Football and quality-wise, we have never had that many established players in top European leagues. In the late 2000s, when we used to win African Cups of Nations every time, all of the national team, or almost all of the Egyptian national team, were in the Premier League in Egypt. Just like Mohamed Zidane in 2 of the tournaments was playing in Germany. And that's probably it. Like, nobody was away in Europe. In obviously such higher quality leagues than in Egypt. But now even the league in Egypt has taken several steps down. The scheduling nightmares, really. The league isn't even halfway done over there. And yeah, I don't see a way back for us, even if we've been like on the verge of World Cup qualifying. We're one kick away. But even when we qualified for the World Cup in 2018, the World Cup itself was a logistical joke, just like controversy after controversy. And if we qualified for it this time, it would have been worse, given where it's played as well in an Arab country. Yeah, I don't know what's next for Egypt, and frankly, I don't want to care anymore, because there is no point, because we're not going to be successful for a very, very long time.
You sound more downbeat than Fergal usually is. I wasn't expecting this.
Yeah, because the one thing I hate most in life is a lack of honesty and professionalism. Honesty is like the one principle of life I just like try to live by. And just seeing that in the country I grew up watching football in and had all those glorious days, and there's cycles to it, but when you're self-destruct that much because of the complete and utter lack of leadership and professionalism and honesty, it is insanely blood boiling. I'm not even like, this is no hyperbole. I'm actually just shocked at the lack of professionalism in this institution, and there's a long way to go.
Take that out of it for a second, if you can, in terms of the manner in which the decisions been taken and has happened. Do you think it's fair? Do you think he deserved to lose his job based on football performances, or
he just started
premature?
I don't see the point. Yeah, I don't see the point. He just started. Like, apparently the other reason why they sacked her is that they figured out they can hire a foreign coach. You've already done it. You've already hired a manager. Like, soak it up, suck it up, even for a year, even, like, not a few weeks. You know what I mean?
It's strange.
I think Ireland are a good sort of case study for this. Like, we're nearly went bankrupt. The FAI, really badly run. Didn't have any money for a manager. Couldn't even get the highest, the Irish manager with the biggest reputation. And we've tried foreign managers. Famously Jack Charlton worked out. But Trapattoni, I mean, we qualified for a tournament, but the football was terrible. And I think it can take someone from your own country with pride in your own country, like Stephen Kenny, go, we're better than this, and we're gonna show people that we can do more. And it takes patience. It takes a lot of time. And Ireland are still on that journey, but we have improved. But we had to lose to Luxembourg and Armenia first before we could, taste the sweet nectar of pumping the Scots. So, Egypt could learn from Ireland in that.
Yeah,
learn from Ireland.
There you go. They could learn from Ireland.
Yeah, I don't know if we.
Do you think we'd be saying that last week, Fergal?
No.
Couple of good results. He's like the old. He's like the Arsenal fans with Wenger. Wenger in, Wenger out. He's flip flopping all over the place.
Oh, I'm not. I never flip flopped over Kenny. In fairness.
No, it's true. I did try to push you for an answer last week, but you stood firm. And to be fair, you've been rewarded for your patience and your faith that you've shown with two, pretty good results, I'd say, from a distance. I mean, obviously drew to Ukraine, who beat you previously, and obviously beat Scotland. Well, it was a good game. And then I say then you actually beat Scotland first. You thumped them 3-0.
I was there, Harry.
I believe you were there.
Yes.
I saw it with my own two bloody eyes.
There you go.
The flesh.
We actually were nearly late for it, or we were a bit late for it, because the bus we got just had a shocker with the schedule, and arrived outside the stadium, parked up 5-2, and got into the ground, into our seats at 7 minutes into the game. Thankfully, I'd have to wait another 20 or another wee while for the first goal, and it was a classic Ireland set piece. A good set piece. It's a scrappy goal, but the actual method of it was, we can recreate that, and ball to the back post, nodded down by Duffy, and it's just a well worked goal. I know it pales in comparison to the two magnificent goals that then came up.
So good.
And these are goals we don't score. These will be literally some of the best goals Ireland have scored for the last 20 years. I saw it with my own two eyes. I was so happy. Ogbene picks or Parrott wins a nod down for the second, and lays it off. It falls to Ogbene. Ogbene does a wee step over, looks up. Parrott's made a bursting ball into the box, and he puts it right on his head. And Parrott doesn't even have to break his stride and just nods it in, and we were off then. And then second half, brilliant tackle by Malumbi to win the ball back high up the pitch after it was a bit ricocheting a bit. Falls to Parrott again, pass to Ogbene. Ogbene only had one thing in his mind: get it out of his feet, and lashes it home. Wham! If anybody hasn't seen it, go treat yourself. You deserve it.
Yeah, you won't regret it. You
won't regret
nonchalance of the. My favorite goal is the second goal because of, first of all, how nonchalant it was from Ogbene. Not Ogbene. Obafemi.
Have I been saying Ogbene? Sorry, I mean Obafemi.
Yeah, you might have been saying Ogbene. But from Obafemi, how nonchalant this little flick is, and over a distance too. But the run creates it, and he just puts it right on the stride. It couldn't be more perfect.
And what I like about that one is that we hadn't been shown enough of that, but looking for runs in behind and on and quality killer ball.
It's balling
and
out.
I feel like that's a goal we can replicate. Not exactly the exact same, but the principles of people running in behind, making dangerous runs, and then people lifting their head to pick the ball out. That is something that can be replicated. The third goal, that I don't think, as far as I know, Obafemi hasn't scored outside the box in his career yet until that moment.
Wow.
And what a moment to do it. And then he got an injury then, but there was still points to improve upon. Scotland should have scored through McGinn. Duffy gave the ball away twice, trying to pass it out from the back. And we nearly got caught out then. And so it could have been 1-1 if Scotland had taken their chances. But Scotland were off it. McGinn was terrible. Robertson was just okay. I thought McGregor was probably their best player. But in terms of Ireland, it was just massively different. And in hindsight, I've looked back at the Ukraine game. I sort of did say it at the time as well in the last pod, but it wasn't as bad. It really wasn't as bad a bad result as first thought, because whenever I watched the full highlights back of the Ukraine game, we really did have chances, and we actually should have had a penalty. And that game goes differently if we go 1-0 up. I always think I'm pretty confident we can hold on to the leads fairly well. When we're 1-0 up, when we have a full strength team. And yeah, so I think the Armenia game was the one terrible performance. The Ukraine game, the first Ukraine game where we lost 1-0, it was poor, but it wasn't that bad. And then things finally came together, and one of the big changes was Jason Malumbi coming into the team instead of Hendrick. And Jason Malumbi, previously, he's full of energy, full of tenacity, snap at the heels of players, but he can run around like a headless chicken sometimes. He's had a full season at West Brom, and you can tell he's had a full season of senior football. He just so much better maturity, decision making, a lot more composed. The best 2 games he's played for Ireland, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm much more convinced on him now. Having seen him in the flesh and then watched the Ukraine game as well. And in the second game, or in the fourth game of the fixtures, away to Ukraine and Poland, we had to start pretty much a brand new back three, full of youngsters. So we had Nathan Collins, who's played every minute of every game. O'Shea at left centre back, and then Lenihan. Now they're all very experienced at Championship at the very minimum. Lenihan's captain Blackburn, and I think he's moving to Middlesbrough. O'Shea again with West Brom had injuries, but he'll be starting for them come next season, and it's done well. But it was Nathan Collins that stole the show. Stepped up, intercepted a ball. Way like for an Irish centre back, he's
way ahead, right?
He should be getting a nosebleed where he picks that ball up from.
Yeah.
And he, like, we're so used to like Duffy, and Duffy does so much and such an area threat, but the writing could be on the wall for Duffy in terms of what we're trying to do and playing out from the back. He nearly cost us the game before. It could have went very differently if Scotland had took those chances, and Nathan Collins can do that. Just dribble past 3-4 players, outside of the boot, put it in the back of the net for his first Ireland goal. To have the composure to do that, like, it's just incredible. And I watched an interview with his dad there and off the ball. His dad was he comes from a good footballing background, which I didn't realise. His dad was in the Liverpool academy. I don't think he made it at the highest level, but I think he played in Ireland, and his uncles played in Ireland, and a good few players playing in Ireland in the Irish leagues through the years. A good footballing family, but he looks the real deal, and I think, like, he was bought 15 million from Burnley to Burnley last summer. He finally broke into the side, and he cost them. He made a big mistake to put them down, but as far as I can remember, it wouldn't have mattered. But he was brilliant in the run and scored some important goals for Burnley. But this guy looks like such a good centre back, especially for an Ireland as well. He's going to be in the team for for so long. But if any Premier League teams looking at centre back with the financial issues that are going on at Burnley, although they've somehow managed to get Vincent Kompany as their manager, which again wouldn't be the worst thing for Nathan Collins to learn from him.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking a team like Leicester go and get Nathan Collins.
Yeah, actually,
that's a good shot.
There's plenty of teams looking centre backs. Leeds, Southampton maybe could do with one.
Yeah,
Bazuni's on his way there.
And also Leicester, because of their problems with the set pieces and how good Nathan Collins showed to be in the latter part of the Premier League season. I feel like, I mean, I guess relative to the rest of Leicester City, but yeah, it's a great shot.
Yeah, Nathan, he's been brilliant. He's incredible against Ukraine. Ukraine have that Mudryk fella. I don't know. I never heard of him until these round of international games. He was dangerous in the game against us. He's probably Ukraine's biggest threat. But in the home game against Ukraine, Nathan Collins didn't give him a sniff. He was brilliant, and yeah, he just looks like he's ready for the top level. I'd honestly sign him for Chelsea.
Really?
I honestly, like, I'm obviously massively biased here, but in terms of like Magnus Sarr can lace Collins' boots. You know what I mean? But that's the standard.
Always him. It's always him, isn't it? No, it's not though, is it?
But that's
it's
what
not.
it is, though.
Because it's universal. He's not the standard because you don't think he's good enough.
To get into the squad,
That's not how it works. You can't pick the worst player at a team and go, well, if you're better than him, then you can play for Chelsea. Like, no,
that's
he
literally
just
the
isn't
case
good
at the
enough.
moment. If he's
No, I don't agree with that. I don't agree. He might. I think he probably is. That's a silly bar to sort of judge it by, though. Like,
nah, I don't think so, because if you're saying like, okay, we have
the two things are separate entities. Like,
don't cut me, Harry. Let me finish my point.
It's true.
Wait. We have the best center back. We have the worst center back. If we can raise the floor of the worst center back up there, and I'm pointing to the camera doing these things. That's great podcasting. But if you can raise the level of what's poor, the level of center backs, and
improve your weakest part
level, you improve your weakest part. The average level of center backs would be better. And Chelsea needs center backs, by the way. Regardless. So if you're going to buy like 3 center backs, he's your cheapest option, the bench option, then yeah, go for it. I don't see the problem in this at all.
I don't have a problem with them going from either. I don't especially care. But my point is, I don't think saying Sarr, he's better than Sarr, is a good reason for it, basically. I understand your point about raising the floor. It's a valid one. I've seen us do it at Arsenal. I don't object to that. But I think you'd be raising the floor because he's good, not because he's better than Sarr, who is crap. You know, I think the two things.
My point is that if Magnus Sarr is able to have a full season at Chelsea, Nathan Collins is far and above that.
Yeah, but he shouldn't have been. Fair enough.
But yeah, just to point out, like, so we have him. Malumbi had a great, and then Obafemi was brilliant in the one game. He really shone, and Barrett looks like he's. I hope he gets another good loan. Hopefully championship level. He looks again a lot more mature. Some incredible touches and technical qualities with him. But the issue for us is the fullbacks or wing back position, because we have Matt Doherty to come back in, and whenever he's playing, you definitely want to play 5 at the back. I think he's worth doing that, especially with all the good centre backs that we have and manage to fit all them in as well. But we, against a team like Armenia, we need a 4 at the back system, but we don't really have the fullbacks to do that. I think Matt Doherty would be good enough to do it against Armenia. If we're playing because that's when we deploy such a system, would be when we're going to be in top, and but we're struggling for a good left back. Although we have a young player that's gone to Udinese, so perhaps they can impress there.
I also wonder if what changed between Armenia and Ukraine and Scotland is there seems to be with Stephen Kenny, from the conversation I've had with you Fergal on the podcast, and just listening to like other podcasts like the Second Captains, let's say, or Off the Ball. It seems like Stephen Kenny is very process driven and very like detailed on what he wants to do tactically and even technically. I wonder if that changed into, after the Armenia result, there was a realization of we might need to give them a bit of freedom there. It won't get worse than this, hopefully, than the result against Armenia. I wonder if we can calm down on the instruction a bit, tell them to have just play with a bit of freedom. Obviously, the instruction has to be there so you can play an organized game at least, and just play, like, identify the opposition's strengths and weaknesses and whatever. But something like the long range goal or the little clip from Obafemi, I wonder if those things would have happened in the immediate past before that game, if Stephen Kenny wasn't like, hey, be free. It's fine. We're still.
I think you might have misunderstood the sort of manager Stephen Kenny is there. Stephen Kenny is the type of manager to say, have a pop, son. He wants these young players to express themselves. I think
it just felt to me that he was trying to evolve Ireland from a very like rigid, direct team into a very technically and tactically mature team that kind of plays progressive football rather than the direct style that happened before. And I just thought he would be like very detail oriented about that, and then realized, oh, maybe not. But
no, I think it's more to do with just the personnel that we're playing. I think it really is on the players. I think with it, like at the top level that might be the case, Ali, but with a team like Ireland, we're gonna have peaks and troughs, especially with young players, just inconsistency. Though it's been the older players that have been inconsistent. It was Callum Robinson and Bennett. I don't know if it's after a long season, after a bit of a month's break. It was the heat in Armenia was apparently very warm. All these things sort of ran into each other, and then the goal just didn't come. And then the longer it goes on, and then they score. I think it was just one of those games, and I think is one issue that, or his one mistake was not starting Obafemi in that first game, because he was the most informed striker. He was raring to go against Scotland and score that great goal and set up another. And it's that bit of inventiveness that he then brought him in to do. But he had a loyalty to Robinson and Ogbene from beforehand, which I appreciate, and it's a hard one to toss up. Like, do you try and be loyal and try and back your players that have done well for you previously, or do you go for the most informed club level striker? It's a hard one because some players really step up for Ireland, even if they're not playing, like Duffy, like McLean. And so you want to see if those players can be rewarded like that. But I think with strikers, I always prefer someone that's playing regularly and performing well. With strikers, so maybe Obafemi in hindsight definitely was the right decision. But I didn't I wouldn't have made that decision either. I would probably pick the team that Kenny did. But then the other big change was Malumbi coming into midfield. It was just energy that we lacked.
Yeah.
It wasn't a tactical thing at all. I didn't think it was for the Amini game. It was the players were poor. There was a lot of things that led towards that.
Yeah,
and then the changes that were made just gave us energy and players that were feeling good about themselves, and Malumbi and Obafemi, because they played the whole season, and whereas Callum Robinson hadn't been, and I think that's the main difference.
And playing at home for sure.
Playing at home helps, yeah.
You know, the positive to you speaking at length about Ireland, Fergal, is I don't have to talk about England very much now.
Yeah, because we're running out of time. I
thought I might just get away with it there. It probably does deserve a passing mention. England losing 4-0 to Hungary. Ali's got his hand up. Go on.
Just shout out Daniel Gazdag, Philadelphia Union attacking midfielder, our star man, the scorer of that fourth goal. Just keeping up pace with Kyle Walker and thinking it over is something I didn't expect him to. He is brilliantly creative for the level of MLS, and has set up a few goals. Has been really getting on the act of scoring. One of the first goals I've seen for Philadelphia Union live was a penalty in a very cold game. It was negative. It was in the negative in Fahrenheit, if I recall. It's so cold. No, it was 12 degrees Fahrenheit. It was definitely negative a lot in Celsius. But it was cold. It was 1-0. The tempo was slow. The atmosphere was a bit tense because we were just 1-0 up. And he steps up for a penalty and Panenka's it. And that just settles everything. And then in one of the previous games before the international break, there's the 1-2. It just slams it top corner. God, he's so good. And I'm happy he scored that fourth goal, and I hope he starts every single game for Hungary because he deserves it.
I mean, let's talk about Hungary. Christ, fantastic. I mean, great. Let's just talk about anything but England. Basically, is what I'm getting at here.
So before the start of the episode, you said you found it actually quite funny.
I did, yeah, I did, because I've reached the point with these Nation League games where they shouldn't be getting played. They're friendlies. This is not a tournament. This is an invented tournament that means absolutely nothing to pretty much any match-going fan.
Though? aren't.
Yeah, but some actually have a history and they mean something to win. This is just glorified friendlies.
This will have a history.
Exactly.
It won't have a history. People aren't taking to it at all. To be honest with you,
I absolutely love the Nations League.
But you love international football, and so this is what I'm getting at. I think that
Harry, granted, I think it's a bit of a nuisance for the teams in the A division, but for
it doesn't mean anything. In the A division, I mean, England are going to get relegated. So what? I don't care.
But you're saying I like international. You don't like international football at all.
Correct. But what I'm basically getting at here is it's negligence, I think, to be playing football late into June or into the middle of June when the season's ended and then pre-season starts in 2 or 3 weeks. It's all sports science for me. And then during the season, rather than being friendlies where you rotate players and give people a chance, there's added importance placed on these games. And I just don't think there should be. There's already too much football played. And you can't argue that the quality suffers as a result of it. These England games have been appalling. And the games involving the other teams have been pretty poor as well.
The Nations League isn't for the top teams. I'll admit that.
Right.
This Nations League is for the minnows. It's for the San Marinos. It's for them. You're talking about these games being pointless for England. Every other competition is pointless for San Marino.
And that's fair enough. I'd accept that as a counter, but I'm obviously speaking as an England fan.
As an England fan, I totally get it, and I really, really hope you get relegated and we're in your group because that would just.
I struggle to care. I don't care if we are relegated because I don't care if we win the thing either. It makes absolutely no difference to me.
I think it's because there isn't a history with it yet. I think, for me, I look at the Nations League and go, if Ireland get a golden generation, it's the type of tournament we should really be taking seriously because there is a chance of silverware. And I think with the teams that are in it, it actually is a serious competition. If you're winning it, you're beating, you're gonna have to beat probably how many teams would be two in the actual finals of it, and then 3 or 4. So you're beating about five of the top teams in Europe to win this trophy. It's definitely easier to win because of the group stage, and then it's a really short knockout. So you only have you could lose games in the group stages and then just win 2 on the bounce and win the trophy. So it is easier, but I'm fully invested in it, and I think for a team like Belgium and a team like England, you should actually be taking this seriously because it'd be like the equivalent of winning the League Cup for a top team. It gives you that taste of winning. It gets you turning up for a final, and that can only lead to more success. I think if for example, this Belgian generation come away with not even a Nations League, they'd be right. Belgium aren't a massive footballing country, and so if I think that even for them, it would be disappointing not to win a European Championship or a World Cup with that generation. But if they could go, at least we got the Nations League, and then whenever this competition is going for as long as with the World Cup and the Euros, Belgium will look back and go, "Oh, we won that, and it means something now because there is now a history." So, I totally get it. It is a bit of a nuisance. But I think your point is more about scheduling fixtures more than the competition.
But that's
it is ridiculous to have 4 games. But that is because of the World Cup.
Yeah, I know. It's because there isn't an international break in the winter. I get it because there's as you said, there's the Winter World Cup. But that's what I'm saying. If this competition didn't exist, then you wouldn't have to play 4 games because you've got to make up for 2 that won't be played in the winter. That's my point. And so I just think that the games are pretty low quality. They're low stakes. I'm not invested in them, particularly when they're being played in June. But even when they're mid-season, I think with the World Cup and the Euros, partly because at least up until this Winter World Cup we're going to have, they exist outside of club football in terms of when they're actually played. I suppose I can get invested in it because it's not being played at the cost of club football. But I think even with this World Cup coming up, it'll be annoying for the season to be interrupted, but it's a form of football where for me anyway, there's jeopardy in winning and losing. Like in this Nations League, I don't really care what we do, to be honest with you. But like taking all that out of it, England are terrible. Like, I really think England are poor and won't do very well at this World Cup. I don't think Southgate's a good manager. I think people that use outcome-based analysis to make the case for him being a good manager, it's ridiculously reductive analysis. I think you just need to use your eyes and watch what we're doing on the pitch, and it's not very impressive. I think you could even suggest that we succeed in spite of him. I certainly don't think it's because of him. I think the greatest compliment you can give him is he sets us up quite cautiously, which maybe works in tournaments. But there's nothing I like that I'm watching, and part of it's because I don't like international football, but part of it's because I plainly don't think he's a good manager either. So there's just nothing positive about it whatsoever, and I have no sort of positive emotion going into the World Cup either. Absolutely zero.
I will.
The only thing I would say to console you there is like you've got a long while to go, and I think having it in the winter is actually going to suit England. Like famously, like, English teams play the most games a lot of the time. Don't get a winter break like other teams. Yada yada yada. We've heard it all before. This one's set up to suit England a bit better. And
it was the last tournament though where we played all the games at home and they still didn't win it. So and they've had good draws. I just like it's probably another episode in itself.
There was a good point made from Jonathan Wilson about the actual run of the Euros, and I end up kind of agreeing with him that like he was saying how you had Czech Republic who were actually a better team than they looked on paper.
Yeah.
In the group, Croatia who were on the decline but were in the previous World Cup final. And then you have Scotland, who's a tricky draw. They get through that fairly easily, pretty easily. Then you face Germany again, not a great German side, but still Germany, still one of the top teams you can play. Get past that. Then it was who was after that? Ukraine. Put them aside really easily. They're basically done what you're expected to do against them. But again, Ukraine are no mugs. And then you play a really good Denmark team that's gone on to do more. So like the run that England had, I think is like Jonathan Wilson says, and I end up kind of agreeing with him. It's actually an average run to the final for the Euros. I think the World Cup run in 2018 that was easy, but the run to the final in the Euros, I think it was actually trickier than. What you, especially with what some of those teams have gone on to do since that Euros, actually more credible than that. I still like. There's no point sacking him now.
Yeah, definitely not. And I think that Southgate is. I don't think he's as. How do I put this? There are alarming elements to his management. Yes.
He's just slow tactically changing games. I think that's
exactly.
This
is one of his main points. Making substitutions. I don't think he's very good at them, but I think he does have we saw in terms of the way he sets up for the opposition in the Euros. I think we saw very good examples of that. And in times when he has done that well. But like you can sack him now in the World Cup. We're in June. The World Cup is in less than 5 months. You can't change things around now and have someone with a completely different setup. You'll have to just back Southgate now.
I'd also back him to make it positive again before the start of the World Cup.
Definitely.
Yeah, but I don't think it's negative at the moment. I don't think within the squad. I don't think we're struggling to perform. I think part of it's a fatigue thing. I think these players have been at it, since August, and we're now in mid-June.
The only big nation to be struggling. France have had a terrible a terrible time in this Nations League as well. I think it is.
To Germany.
I think it goes back further than that for me, though. Like I think what I've seen since the Euros as well has been pretty poor. Yeah, I haven't, and I don't necessarily. I think you make a compelling argument about the draw not being as easy as it looks on paper, but I think if you went through the individual games, I don't think much of it was very impressive. Maybe it doesn't have to be in knockout football, but
I think that's another thing as well. That he doesn't have as much time with the players. He definitely could be doing more. Like you look at other international teams, they are more impressive attacking wise, but he. I do think in international football the cautious approach isn't a bad approach. And I think he's now tested the waters with the four at the back, and he's definitely not going to touch it.
No.
But that is I think a four at the back suits someone like Trent more. You could I think
it means you get another forward as well, and we have good forwards. I mean, I'd like to see a four at the back, but you're absolutely right. It'll be back to the back three. It'll be 3-4-3, and it'll probably be quite boring. But they're going to stick with him, obviously. Like he's not going anywhere, at least not till this next tournament's over. And then I think even then, it's on my part, optimistic to think he's going anywhere because I don't think he is. But I just don't rate him at all. I just don't think he's a good manager. I don't think there's anything that proves it.
You always have to look at it like what's your next option. So it's either going to
be... it's not easy in international management because you could argue that a lot of the top managers don't want to be in international management. They want to be in club management.
You look at an eligible candidate in Eddie Howe. He's taken by Newcastle. He's not going to be going anywhere. Graham Potter's the one people keep saying. Like
they're not
like in time. Southgate was Middlesbrough manager. Is Brighton not the equivalent of managing Middlesbrough pretty much?
Well, he took Middlesbrough down, so I'd argue probably not. I think.
Good point.
Yeah.
I think.
But like in terms of what Graham Potter's done, like he might go on to be a brilliant coach, but hang your hat on him and go, he's all of our answers, and to sort of disregard some of Southgate's genuine qualities, I think it's just a bit silly and like you. I think he's your best option going into the World Cup. In terms of that's because it'd be too short notice to change a manager without causing too many disruptions. Granted, but I think he'll give you a fighting chance at the World Cup to get further on.
Get good.
Not convinced.
But it was bloody brilliant seeing him getting pumped by Hungary.
It was so good seeing that Kazakh goal, man.
I wasn't watching. I was watching Ireland. But
I didn't watch
Hungary, some great goals. It did seem like Hungary just took their chances and scored some.
It was 4. I think it might have been 4 shots on target, 4 goals.
Yeah.
So not a good evening between the sticks for the Arsenal man.
Wasn't it the most goals England have conceded in a home game since they last got pumped by Hungary?
Was that the 4-2 all those years ago at Wembley? With
the famous Pushkas one, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I can't remember it being more than that. So you're probably right.
I think I heard. I think it was 1928 or something, perhaps.
Yeah. I look. I'm just done with international football now. Like I've seen enough. I'm ready. Well,
I'm just getting into it. I want more.
I know.
Just when we start playing well.
I don't want any of it.
This is where we have contrasting views, I suppose, Fergal. Anyway,
I in terms of like the fixtures, I think like if international football stays as it is, like the number of games, I don't want an expanded World Cup, even if it means Ireland qualify every time. No interest in that. I'm quite happy with how all the international football tournaments are formatted. Just leave them alone. Yeah, you just don't want.
But they just want more games. They want more games in all of these tournaments. It's pretty obvious.
But it's not just the international tournaments that are like that. It's the Champions League's gonna have more games. Like it's just a growing thing that. What is this obsession with more money?
I think.
Well,
I actually
think everybody's looking for more profits. They're all raking it in. Just leave it.
But.
Like you've got more than enough money, but they're always looking for more. Just let it work with the funds you have. You're making healthy profits every year. Relax.
And I think
it winds me up.
They will realize how big of a mistake they're making and will reverse everything. So that's my optimistic take on this.
With the Champions League.
Yeah,
I'm not as optimistic as you, Ali. I think the direction of travel with football now is more games, because more games equals more money, equals more.
They'll realize quick
entertainment.
that they are losing interest for people who play video games and Netflix shows, because binge watching shows that are having something new every time is a lot more entertaining than boring football where everybody gets injured. So that'll be the reversal. That'll be the reason.
Oh, what? Yeah, it is mad, the amount of football, and I think like I can see it only going one way, and like I am dreading this FIFA Club World Cup revamp, that looks imminent as well. That looks like the nail in the coffin for maybe an actual player's nail in the coffin. That might actually kill off a player, and end of 60 games having to go to Tokyo to play another Champions League formatted competition. Just mad.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious to me what's going to happen. But we'll see. Ali might be right. Moving on to the proper stuff.
The proper stuff.
Yeah, moving on to the proper stuff. The transfer window's opened, which is weird because you sort of see deals like, obviously the Haaland deal was announced like weeks ago, but obviously it's only sort of officially just gone through. And then Liverpool respond with Darwin Núñez, big money signing, transfer record. I think it will probably end up being.
Don't think so.
Well, it depends sort of what the structure of the payment. I've seen 100 million. It could get up to 100 million euros.
100 million is when he achieves all objectives, which rarely ever happens.
I don't know. The way deals are structured now, it's sort of hard to. It's becoming harder to attach a fee to it, especially when you incorporate wages and payment to agents, all that sort of stuff. But I suppose your reaction to that, Ali, because I suppose you've got to factor in the fact that Mane's going, presumably. I think that's the general consensus. So, is this how you wanted Liverpool to respond to that in terms of, obviously you needed to sign someone, but did you want them to sign more of a like for like, or did you want them to go for a striker, sort of more of a, he's a good player, but he's more of a pin-up man than sort of you've had before, less in the sort of false nine mold. So I suppose what's your reaction to that?
Before the transfer happened, I was a little less positive about it than I am now, as you learn like more information about how he feels about it. Like when you watch those first interviews and the signing day vlog that Liverpool put up on their YouTube channel and things like that, it gets you more excited. But also when you learn more about how he actually played with Benfica, because I don't think any of us watched a lot of Portuguese football, just limited to the Champions League. But it makes sense in a lot of ways, and it doesn't really in some ways. But I think the positives definitely outweigh the negatives. If not the transfer fee, but every price is ridiculous right now. And Darwin Núñez,
there's no bargains. Let's be clear here. There's absolutely no bargains being had in the transfer market right now. Clubs are, they're well aware of how to get value for players. They're getting them contracted. And the only way they're not getting anything for them is if they're going on freeze.
Or a year left in a deal or something. Once if there's 2 years or more, you're not getting any sort of a deal.
I just don't think there's many bargains at the moment when you sort of, when you look at it and think, is it risk free? Like, is he value for money at whatever they've paid for him? I don't know. Like, he might be a sensational player, but it is a lot of money for an unproven player at the highest level.
But I think what we're also buying is a very long-term striker. Like, I think we're looking to have Darwin Núñez as our starting striker for the next 8 to 10 years. And it's an exciting thing. It's a shift from what we.
It's a 6-year deal, wasn't it?
6-year deal. So, but I think it will inevitably be renewed unless we let him go under a different manager, because Klopp's going in 2026, is it? So before the end of his deal. But it's a shift in the direction we had with our front three, and all of them being involved in build-up play, and Firmino being or Mane in recent times, like dropping in and linking up play, and while also being kind of a presence in the box, but more of a focal point in build-up. Darwin Núñez is a striker, can also operate down the left. very aggressive dribbler, will shoot from anywhere and with very high success, if you're taking last season into account. And I think we've kind of needed that. Someone whose objective is to score bloody goals and isn't afraid to take risks.
Do you not put Salah in that mold though? No, I know he's a different player. He's not an out-and-out striker, but would you not say that he's always looking to score goals? He shoots quite a lot, even though he does create as well. And I know that goes underappreciated maybe, but he shoots a lot. Like, but he wants to score.
He's also the top assist maker.
I'm not being reductive in it.
Yeah, I know. But also, what I'm saying is, like, he's our striker now. Like, we're going to look for him to score a lot of the time. It's Salah, obviously, and we're blessed with a lot of options that can score goals. And
go ahead.
No, there's still a few more things to do here, because one of the very interesting things I found on the Redmond TV's Twitter, they had a video from a snippet from their kind of subscription site about Darwin Nunez, and had a little data viz about where his key passes and progressive passes received are, and they are from spots that we look for chances in. Down the right-hand side, on the right-hand side of the penalty area, in the right half space, so those are Trent areas. From the left side of midfield, that's where Thiago would operate, and then from the left-hand side, like on the opposite side of the box, where Robertson creates. So these are our top three creators, and like Salah, or top 3 or 4, Salah, Trent, Thiago, Robertson, in the exact areas where he receives, where the passes he receives are from. So that'll suit us for sure. But yeah, let's see what happens. I'm sure he won't flop. How fast a success he is remains to be seen. But let's hope for the best. I'm excited. I can't not be.
I think go on, Fergal.
Just quick, I find it interesting, the two top managers in the world, top teams in the world, both went out and signed sort of pure goal scorers.
You've literally, you've said exactly what I was going to say.
I'm looking at it going, like, are they seeing a tactical evolution that is coming, that needs to happen away from the inverted wingers and a more the false nine? Is this the end of false nines? Have managers seen the limitations with that? Or are they just looking to change it up so it doesn't go stale?
I'd
love to get like Guardiola and Klopp to discuss why they're going for it. What will be a massive shift in the tactics.
I think there is a tactical element to it, like that I can't speak to, but I also think the 5 sub thing is going to be really interesting from next season. I think that's a factor in all of this, is the fact that essentially now within games you're going to be able to change half of the lineup that you're starting with, and so having flexibility to change between systems, and that's not exclusive to strikers, by the way. It doesn't mean you have to have a target man, but I think having different dimensions to your play within games will become more important over time. And I think that when you look at the best 2 teams in the league going and signing big strikers, as you say, they've probably there's probably a tactical reason for it, but I also think they're looking at it and thinking we need to be doing something else as well. They have to be a good player. Like, it's not like you just go and sign Chris Wood because he's a target man. Like, they have to be good as well. But I think it certainly helps, to have other ways of playing out of pressure, other ways of creating chances when you're putting balls into the box. I think that you're going to need more sort of variation to the way you're trying to beat teams now with 5 subs.
That's a good point with the 5 subs, but it's just mad that like they're literally, like, I just didn't think that especially Guardiola would be signing a player like Haaland, and a little bit of me thinks that like it was a club decision to sign him more than a Guardiola decision. Just like, this player's going for how good he is, he's going dirt cheap. His father's linked with Man City. It makes perfect sense for us to sign one of the best strikers in the world. But it's like the two of them, their stats of link-up play isn't great.
Yeah, not at all.
Or not their main strength, perhaps is the better way of saying it.
No, Darwin
So they're
Nunez
going to be
cannot
completely
pass.
diverting to the type of striker. Man City were barely even playing with a striker last season. And done so well. So
and
yeah,
given that, and given the fact that we're not going to sign a midfielder, apparently Calvin Ramsey's going to be our last signing, backup, young right back, 9 assists in the Scottish Premiership. Do they call it now?
Yeah.
Last season, so that's
SPL.
exciting. The SPL.
Yeah, well,
given that this is our last signing, I think we might be shifting to either a 4-4-2 or 4-2-3-1. Firmino might be coming back to attack in midfield, so we'll see.
No midfield signing for Liverpool, but in other news, there is, well, at least one for Arsenal. Have also gone on a Portuguese raid,
I'm very jealous.
into the Portuguese league. Well, there's clearly some good players there. I have to say, firstly, before I talk about Fabio Vieira, it's nice when there's a transfer that happens out of nowhere. Like,
I prefer them.
It feels like less and less in football now they happen because there's just so many journalists and there's so many leaks at clubs. There's so many ways for them to, get access to stuff, and there's more and more coming out of clubs. And I just think that it's bloody nice when it comes out of nowhere. Like the name Fabio Vieira hadn't come into my head once this summer. It honestly hadn't. Like, not because I've not heard of him, because he's a bloody gem on Football Manager, for example, but just because we've not been linked with him at all. Like, I think our targets, at least to this point, I think are pretty well, I thought anyway, pretty well documented in Jesus, Tielemans, perhaps Zinchenko, maybe Rafinha. Like, I think people were pretty clear the guys that we were going to go for, and then it was just going to be, can we get them? And then all of a sudden, this guy's flying in and he's signing tomorrow. And I mean, it's nice. And so I've done my research into him because I've got to say, I've not watched him much. I don't watch the Portuguese league.
My own experience of him is, like you said, Football Manager.
Football Manager. He is. I think what he certainly demonstrates, and I'm glad I'm seeing this more with Arsenal, is its recruitment because of what he offers within a system. I think they've clearly identified, look, he's good between the lines, he's creative, he's good at pressing, takes the ball under pressure. These are all things we want from someone to play in one of those 2 number 8 positions that we've sort of gone to in this 4-3-3. It's difficult not to draw parallels with Man City. Obviously, we don't have the quality of players they have, but the way Man City are firstly able to just never give the ball away because they have such technical proficiency, particularly in midfield. I think that in modern football, you sort of see 2 ways of the top teams playing. One is that you just have fucking athletes everywhere and press the balls off teams, more sort of in the Liverpool mold with their midfielders. And Man City do it through just keeping the ball. I don't think you'd look at, as much as they work hard and they are great athletes, you wouldn't look at Man City's midfield of De Bruyne, Rodri, Bernardo Silva, whether Grealish plays in there, Foden, whoever. You don't look at them and think like monster athletes. You look at them and think they're really, really good footballers. And I think that's sort of what we're going for. When you look at Ødegaard and Fabio Vieira, Tielemans has been linked, Smith Rowe. I think it's going to be that way of playing. And I'm pleased with it in that sense. As I said, can't speak, much from having watched him, but it's interesting because obviously Spurs have signed Basuma this week, or basically it's done, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a player I would have said a year ago we need to sign him because we lack sort of verticality from sort of more of an athlete perspective in our midfield. Someone that runs both ways, wins the ball, cover ground. But now the way we've played in the last few months, I sort of look at it, that's less of a necessity. What we need is someone that works well in tight spaces, obviously very technically good. And I think that running power and covering large distances has become sort of less of an issue when I look at the way we're trying to win games and operate as a team. So I'm pleased in that sense. I think he's a good fit. And I think, as I said, with the 5 subs, people have sort of been saying today, oh, well, that's Tielemans off. No, I think we'll sign him as well. I think we need to. I think you need, when you incorporate the fact that we're going to be in Europe next season, and there's going to be 5 subs. There's 16 games before the World Cup, and that's into the middle of November. So half of the season nearly is played in 3 and a bit months, which is just mad. The games are coming thick and fast, so you're going to need a squad. And so as many good players as possible, basically, is what I'm saying.
And also another young player as well. And then who's this Marquinhos fella? Because
he's a Brazilian.
I nearly
winger.
got worried that he actually signed the real.
No, he's a right winger. I don't know how much of a part he'll play this season. Perhaps a bit in the Europa League group. Again, it's sort of, I think it's a punt. I mean, obviously with Edu as the technical director, there's a sort of Brazilian connection. That's why we've signed a lot of Brazilian players.
Yeah.
Someone like Martinelli, for example, I don't think we signed without Edu there. For all the criticism I've given him, that is potentially where he is more useful. Is that he obviously has access to people that are watching these guys every week. So he's a winger, young player. I don't know how much he'll play, but no, you can see what we're trying to do. It's just whether it'll be successful, sort of recruiting players that have not reached their prime yet, basically. But yeah, more positive. Less stuff for you to talk about, Fergal, at the moment with Chelsea.
Yeah, I mean,
so moving.
Apparently Koundé is pretty close to getting done, but then I've heard other things that Barcelona are close to signing him, but or trying to what's the tabloid term they use? Take over.
I don't know.
Hijack. That's what
hijack the deal. Yeah,
they're trying to hijack the Chelsea bid, but like, to be honest with Koundé, I'm a bit like, because it's been talked about that long, I'm a bit bored of it already, and I'm a bit skeptical of signing a 5'11" centre back for the Premier League. He needs to be like exceptional going forward, and I literally don't know much about him. It's just saw the highlights.
I know a bit. So I can
is he worth the money? Will he suit Chelsea? My worry is that if we switch it for at the back, he's game over. He won't fit in the team.
I don't think he. I think if you buy him, it's an obvious indication that you won't fit. That you won't go for at the back. But even if you go for at the back, his jumping reach is exceptional. He wins so many area duels for what you expect. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but I've seen his profile before the Euros in particular, because I've been a massive fan of him for a long time, and him getting called up to France was very exciting. And I did a little piece on my little blog at the time and kind of looked at his numbers, and his aerial reach is ridiculous. So I don't think the height is an issue, but even then, he's a perfect Azpilicueta replacement because he can do the right center back or right wing back, in my opinion. His ball carrying is good. He's very adventurous with where he wins the ball in terms of like stepping up. So a Rudiger element is being replaced there. I think he'd be perfect, to be honest.
That's good. That's good to hear.
How to get it done then?
It depends on Barcelona. Barcelona have a vote today. Their club members are voting on selling some of Barcelona's broadcast rights and merchandise rights and other stuff that will raise immediately 600 million euros. So it's a very short term, very immediate solution to a devastating financial problem. But you'll lose like long term revenue, or you don't vote it for now. You keep the short term revenue, but you can't squad build. You won't be able to build your squad. So it's a really tough decision. But what I've seen on Twitter is like Barcelona Twitter, reading through it, is like they will probably agree to it. And if they do, then they'll probably get Jules Koundé and Lewandowski and Rafinha maybe. So let's see.
What terrible financial straits they must be in, Jesus.
Yeah. The thing with Chelsea, just really to finish up on Chelsea, is that apart from the positions that we've lost players in because we didn't sign them in centre back, we have to sell before we can sign anybody. Otherwise, because we can't risk signing a player, and then because Chelsea have this culture of players being like, oh well, I'm on a good wage and should just put me out on loan and pay my wage. We can end up being stuck with players, so we have to wait to sell players. It looks like Juventus are sniffing around Jorginho. So fingers crossed. I think it'd be and just a nice point for Gino to leave for his own good. I genuinely think he might become like a hated figure, if a bit like Willian did. You know, like just like this point of tension within Chelsea. Like he's only going to go one way, Jorginho. And I think if he went now,
maybe we'll sign him
as a great player.
Maybe we'll sign him, and then you'll like him again because he sabotages us, a bit like a certain Brazilian you just mentioned did.
Yeah, that'd be a nice. That would be good.
It would be good. It'd be awful. I think we'll leave it there for tonight, lads. Pleasure as always.
Lovely.
Fergal's enjoyed this episode probably more than me and Ali have, but
no, I really enjoyed it. I've missed it a lot.
Yeah, good. That's it. You boys ain't great. Come on, you boys ain't great.
Okay.
Dear. Right, we'll leave it there. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.